Alright, so I'm going to begin this breakdown just with this character, which I spent probably the most time on out of the entire animation. Like, it got down to 2 months where I was like, okay, well, I need to start working on the animation now, and I don't even have the character, like, even started modeled, or, like, I haven't even started modeling the character 2 months before the animation, so I had to crunch it a whole bunch. But, anyways, this character is mostly just hard surface modeling using subdivision surface, and it's shaded smooth, so you can't really tell, but it's a lot of hard surface kind of stuff here. And the wireframe is not reflective of what this thing is actually modeled look like. There, that's the actual wireframe. But lots of hard surface, subdivision surface modeling stuff, which is like, in some places it's like this because I apply this solidify. In other places like this, you can still see where I haven't applied the solidify to make those plates. For subdivision surface stuff, lots of kind of complicated underlying but low poly topology. That's actually not that evident here. And the hand is most evident. Like, this is probably some of the most impressive modeling I've done. Stuff with this hands, or the hands and the stuff like that. You can see it looks like a, kind of human hand base, but then at the ends of the fingers where they would continue, it just ends in a hard surface joint. That's marked sharp, so that when you subdivision the surface, it like maintains that sharp consistency. And same thing with some of these plates too. Maybe they're not marked sharp, but actually not with that one. Maybe with these feet? No. Oh no, yeah, with the feet. Yeah, so this is like kind of humanoid based topology, and this is actually modeled for organic to hard rigging, which is interesting. I'll cover that in a little bit. But you can see like lots of subdivision surface modeling stuff like that. Same with these middle-ish, same with these parts in the middle. Like underlying quad topology, and then it's subdivision surface with sharp or marked sharp edges. Basically everything in this model is subdivision surface modeled using, just like standard practices, stuff like that. For the shading of the model, I used, well, I used the Chroma Key shader, which is by the same person that made the clay shader, or the Clay-Doh shader, which, God, they make some really good stuff. But it's a mix of, I forget if it was like, I think it is one of the stuff that's just included in Chroma Key's 2.1, but they have building blocks for like stuff too. It's just lots of non-photorealistic building blocks for like good shaders. So that's what I did, is I got some textures off of Chroma Key's 2.1 and made them out in Eevee. Please don't crash again. There we go. And it kind of looks like this. So yeah, Eevee, don't be fooled by the volumetrics, that's just volume scatter. It's all that. This is mostly just the Hope shader. Oh, and I used a color palette offline to generate some of this stuff just because I wanted to get some nice colors for the plating. So here's what the Chroma Key's shader looks like. It's kind of a mess. So that's kind of, the reason why I didn't, I forgot the keybind to go out of these things. But that's the reason I didn't make that. I did actually set up the shading for these guys using the Lightning Boy shader. The Lightning Boy shader is like an add-on that has a bunch of custom, like non-photorealistic nodes that are, I don't actually understand quite how they work, but I think some of it's like custom programming and some of them are just like condensed to nodes. But they just give really nice effects. Like this light fall off is not what you would usually get in like base Blender. Yeah, it looks like this. Got some stuff like paint through the shadows. Stuff that you can't do very easily in Blender, but you can kind of just do it with a few nodes. What really sucks about this though is that it's not going to be supported in Blender 4.0 because Blender 4.0 changed the shading so much. So that's the reason why this is still in 3.6 if the UI looks a little weird. That's why. But so these guys are mostly Lightning Boy shader, and I'm going to have to remake that for Blender 4.0 whenever I continue working with these characters. I might just remodel them entirely. Anyway, yeah, this character. So it really sucks that it doesn't like, it's hard to see the topology of these things because of some like materials and modifiers. But like, just trust me that it's consistent and all the parts like look like this. Like they're all well modeled. This was kind of like a challenge to myself, just to see if I could make like a good, um, well modeled sort of character. Just because I want to remodel these two guys in the future, and so I wanted to see if I could test out some modeling techniques that I would use on them. And I think it worked out pretty good. Okay, so that's the shading. Onto the rigging. Um, this is a base from AutoRig Pro, but then I have a lot of these parts just straight on parented to parts of the rig. Just because why do that when why would I 100% weight them when I could just like straight up parent them, stuff like that. Um, and then, the weight on this goes from like, I weighted the top of this to be 100% around the knee joint to a specific bone there so that it doesn't deform. But then down here, it's weighted like you would weight a person rig so that it goes from hard surface to like organic kind of movement. I don't know. I just thought that was really cool to try and do that. And also the topology here, is good just because subdivision surface just smooths everything out, makes everything kind of clean. Let's see, that's very solid topology. I haven't seen shading error on these robots for the most part. Yeah, or just this robot. I've definitely seen shading errors on these guys up there, just because they're older and I need to fix them. But yeah, and then the same story with the hands. The hands was a little bit more complicated because just because of the topology, figuring out what weights to assign specific vertices so that they still move consistently. But you can see here, I got it working. There's that. And yeah. Oh, the head, also same kind of story. It's important to note that like, there's a lot of things that you don't necessarily see because I had to modify the original AutoRig Pro rig a lot just because they aren't built for hard surface rigging, or robot rigging, I should say. See, like when I bend this, I got like a second set of bones under there that have to like keep consistent with how like a straight on joint would bend, because otherwise with AutoRig Pro's version, the elbow moves a little bit and that makes those things out of line. It's just like, there's so many little fixes that I just can't like quickly address in this, and I don't really want to make it that long form. A cool little thing though is that the eye here has to track to a different tracker than the head, because why did that just stop working? Well, when this gets close enough to the head, wait, it's just because I turned off that, or I just didn't parent that. Well, it doesn't matter, whatever. I'm just not gonna edit that out. I'm just gonna leave it. This is the super cool part of this rig though. I have Wiggle 2 running here, which is like Wiggle Bones, but it actually works, which was made in like the last year. But it's like automatic physics for some bones. So it's like an add-on to animation. I'll do a scene breakdown a few little bits later on like how that all works. But it just adds a little bit more realism to whatever I animate. Like I'm good at animating. I think I can admit that. I think I can say that. I'm good at animating. But just having like a backup little physics thing just adds a nice little touch at the end where it just like looks really cool. Last really important thing to note is how these cables work. So I have Bezier curves parented to empties, and then those empties are parented to vertices, and then those vertices are parented in an actual object to a bone. So I can move that and the cables stay consistent. Oh, I don't know why I just pressed. So that's that. That's the character. That's the thing I spent the most time on. Oh, the eye. Sorry, I should note. The eye is actually just straight emission, but I could have probably made it more complicated. Like this eye is like a gradient. Oh, that's the glass. Sorry, not the eye. The eye is like a gradient texture, and then this eye is like a Fresnel. But it just doesn't matter. I like the shading on this character. It's great. Okay, so on to the actual robot. All right, so this is the robot, like the actual robot. Oh, it's actually, I should note that this animation was made for like a high school robotics animation competition, and that's the reason why it's about what it is. And because of that, I actually decided like I should base this robot off of an actual robot. So this is a robot that this is not the robot, but this is a robot that me and a few other people built over the summer, like last year, or not last year, over the last summer, sorry. And it's like roughly based off of that. Of course, it's more cartoony, like this Rio. Like Rios in real life, they don't actually have the word Rio in all caps on them. So that's something that you should understand. If you're watching this and you're like, you made the part wrong, I was like, yeah, of course I did. So how I'm gonna break this down, I'm gonna start with some of the stuff I modeled first, then I'm gonna get to how I rigged it all, and then also some of the textures. So starting with how I modeled it, everything you could see is like in parts. None of this stuff is parented together. Everything is parented to little empties, and then these are like little subparts. Most of the stuff is just hard surface stuff, like with the robot that I was just probably talking about. Some stuff is subdivided, but most of it is just like straight up modeled, and then has like a solidify outline on them. I can go into wireframe and you can kind of see all the little things and how they're all modeled, but it wouldn't be very productive to go through how I did every single little part, because I think it's just enough to see that this kind of stuff is... Oh, this is actually subdivision surface modeled. This is a nice little part. Can we see the underlying topology on that? Yeah, that's what that looks like. So some stuff solidified, or subdivision surface, some stuff just, hard surface modeling, all that. This is like a cube, or a cylinder, and use bevels to extrude some stuff down, things like that. Yeah, everything's modular. Okay, then so to rigging, yeah. So everything, like I said, is parented to empties. And the reason for that is because making this an actual armature seemed a little strange to me, just because it's not like a character, there's not much need to actually do that. So, oh yeah, and just like the last robot, I have all this stuff like physics simmed using the wiggle bones add-on, which is really, it's so much fun to play with. Oh, and also I've even locked like the wiggle on certain parts so they actually move more realistically. Some parts do not move realistically. All this stuff should not be shaking. It should be bolted to the floor, but it doesn't matter. Like if you look at those end effector or the intake, or whatever you want to call it, the jaws, the mouth, you can see when I wiggle this side to side, it doesn't wiggle because it's like, it's on this thing. But if I wiggle it front and back, it makes more sense. Also, something that really sucks is that the wiggle does affect the gears, but the chains don't move because it's some technicality thing. I don't need to explain it. But yeah, wiggle bones too. Oh, these little cables, same thing with like the last robot that I was talking about. Bezier curves parented to empties, which are parented to vertices, stuff like that. And then all those little empties are like parented to each other. So if I say like this empty, it's got a bunch of empties that are parented to it. And so when I stretch this out, all the cables still go to it. It's like, it's really cool, that's a really nice thing to set up. And then I could also, it really sucks that I modeled this all out, but I couldn't do it in the actual animation. But even these little cables work, okay, well, I'm not going to mess with that anymore, but they do work. And antennas physics sim, this is actually a little rig. I forget if did I actually set that up? No, I don't think I did. I wanted to like set up a thing where the antenna could fold in, but then I realized that it didn't matter, and so I think I gave up on that. There's little empties sometimes in the middle of these things, just like you can see, yeah, this is like a child of where they're parented between both of these things, but only like at half the weight. So you can see the influence is like half for both of those empties. Oh, the super impressive thing about this is these chains. Like if I move this thing down, hold on. Oh, is it that or that? Yeah. If I move this thing down, you can see that the chains like actually track. And this isn't a curve, this isn't a deformed a curve modifier. This is an actual geometry node setup, which is driven by the rotation of these gears. The way I did that is extremely complicated. Not like actually, but to me, because I don't really understand how it works. I just like went through a bunch of Blender posts online of like, I don't understand how this works. So I cobbled together like a setup of to other people's Blender forum posts to make this actually working. But it has to do with just like offsetting the position based around the curve. But then there's like some other complicated stuff. But that's just generally how it works. I really need to do more geometry nodes. So yeah, cables, the chains actually do rotate when this rotates, and it actually works. Like it lines up to the gears. In retrospect, it wasn't worth it. I should have just done a deformed to curve modifier. But it doesn't matter because it's already done. And another thing is because these are all instance little objects, you can see that the chain links here, like as I rotate them, they kind of fall out of place. And that's just kind of unavoidable. Like if you could get down to like infinite resolution and there would be an infinite amount of like offset. Like that's just fundamental about how that thing is set up. Oh yeah, because I had to set, this was really annoying to set up, but I have the like scale on these things driven by some drivers which are tied to the rotation of this, so that the tubes or cables actually still like look nice when this thing folds down. That's pretty much it for the rigging. For the shading, I used a mix of Lightning Board shader and some image textures from, I think, Blender Kit. Oh, that's Geometry Nodes, not Shader Editor. Okay. Oh no, this is actually just a noise texture for the normal, and then metal principled, and then ambient occlusion with Lightning Board shader. So yeah, most of these things have ambient occlusion or something on them to make them look nice. And then just a mix of Lightning Boy shaders. Oh, where's on some of the stuff there's like comic book dots. I don't know if you can see them very clearly, but it's more like, there you go. Now you can see them. Yeah, so for that material, actually I think it is on here. Yeah. Yeah, halftone style. So if you've ever seen like Into the Spider-Verse, this is kind of what they did, but I think they used it, probably did it a different way. They probably didn't use the Lightning Boy shader. They probably had their own techniques for setting it up. But stuff like this, where if I Control X this, it'll be clear how that, yeah. So that's like the difference to what that does. And you can only see it from like a distance away, but it looks pretty cool. And this can either scale based on your screen space or just be like solid. Yeah, that's that. Oh, this is a really interesting thing. The light bulb here is Fresnel based, so it like looks better. But these little light dot things are like gradient textured and set up with like Lightning Board shader stuff. In retrospect, I was looking at the Coma K's add-on page earlier today, and like I saw that they had these things like in there. I want to see if I can find that. Yeah, they had flares in there. I didn't realize that. I probably could have just used those, but it was like, well, I've literally already rendered out and compiled the entire animation, and it's done. I'm gonna post and make the breakdown. So, well, it's that's how it is. But this tracks to the camera using a set of empties. Yeah, this empty just tracks to the camera. Let me see if I can get the camera over here. So that no matter whatever their perspective is, it like just kind of makes sure that the image is facing the camera. Like if I go into camera view here, lock that to my camera, you can see that light always tracks to the camera, always looks good. Oh, I set up this is like a little test object up here where I was testing out light stuff. I don't know, it looked kind of pretty. So yeah, that's that for the robot. I don't know, seemed kind of cool to make an actual thing and spend a ton of time on it. And then I was like, oh, I need to actually animate the entire thing now. It's kind of stupid, but I don't know, it's cool to make an actual robot that I made in Blender. All right, so how I'm going to do each of these individual scenes is I'm going to go by the scenes in which there's something that I think is actually important to say in each of them. And I mean, you can see this is like, if you want to pause and look through this or whatever, all the little notes I have for each individual scene. But I'm not going to cover all of them, just because it's like, some of them just don't really matter. Like for number one, it's just like, I've already shown that. That's just kind of assumed, and that's just not interesting. However, for this scene, there are some interesting things. For one, it's like a showcase of some of the assets that I've used. So this ground texture, I think I got it off of Blender Kit, which is this add-on that just like has a bunch of assets that are like free or CCO. At least I'm 90% sure that it's true. But it doesn't matter because no one's gonna look at this float texture and say these. So this texture is also from Blender Kit. I'm pretty sure, same as this one. This one is from it's from an add-on for Blender that contains a bunch of assets that they're licensed for whoever has the add-on. But because this is not like paid work and this is just like personal creation, like even if it was licensed, it really doesn't matter to this. This is like a photo scanned asset, which is disgusting because of the topology. People really need to stop just like uploading like brain rot straight up 3D photo scanned assets without like retopologizing them at all. I really hate that people just do that. I mean, I understand it, but like, it's annoying to see a nice asset and then boom, it's just like photo scanned. It's a mess. This is also a texture, I think, unless I change the metal. No, yeah. I mean, I could change the metal to something like from the robot, but it doesn't matter. For this, I think I just proportionally edited it in to make it look like the robot had dented in or like crashed or something. Oh, and I like I disassembled a bunch of the robot because it's already in parts. I can just move the parts out and just do that. So everything's in parts. You can see just how that all works. Oh, and this shadow is all ambient occlusion. Like this is not rendered. Like if I move like this bolt, you can see that like the ambient occlusion on the floor, which I modified with the Lightning Boy shader, like works. Like, yeah, I begin with images from Blender Kit, but then I feed that into some other nodes and stuff to make it look the way I want. Oh, I animated this using like this auto keying, and then I used wiggle bones to physics sim it. So it just kind of twitches a little bit, but then the follow through is generated with wiggle bones or wiggle 2. Same with this, I think. As you can see, that thing wiggles, but the chain doesn't. Just kind of frustrating, but whatever. Oh, the screw kind of rolls around because it's parented to an empty, and then that's rotating. Stuff like that. Just little touches. Okay. Okay, so the button press. You can see that I had to knock out the back wall here to make space for the camera to actually fit into here. I'm also going to take out the ceiling just so you can kind of see what I've done here. Is, the scene ends at like what the camera can see, which is just good practices for whenever you're making a scene, is to consider that. I've still got the table over here. Also, yeah, this is a good time to note. This table and these tools are also from Blender Kit and that toolbox. So like, again, this is for like an animation competition, so I think it's important to point that out. But then at the same time, like I've seen the past winners, I'm pretty sure they used assets. I know they used shaders from online. Like I don't think it's as big of a deal as the animation or the storytelling itself or the lighting, actually putting everything together. And for the most part, everything like that's important, like this robot, I've made and I've put together. Like this is not an asset, that's not an asset, this is not, it's whatever. Okay, so actual animation on this though. You can see I timed it up to the music using little markers, so like that's when things need to hit. So a lot of this is anticipation, it goes up. And then see this, actually, when the camera moves, the pose moves like significantly. You can see in between here versus the camera moved, like it actually just moved a whole lot. And then that's that. And anticipation, Oh wait, actually this is an older version. This is the one where the timing was not lined up. So let me get, I think it's under revisions. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Did I physics sim this one? No. Okay. So I actually assembled like the actual animation using stuff in the timeline. And this looks really complicated just because all the bones are keyframe, but most of them, like, say for this hand, like this is the amount of keyframes on this hand. Like, because I need to go to a certain point, and I need to go to a different point, and there's that. And I need it to go down really fast and then kind of have like a little follow through on that. So yeah, just like basic principles of animation stuff, like, you know, anticipation before like that. And I guess that's kind of impact frames just because it like holds it. But you know, like impact frames is like you where you hold a thing for like 2 or 3 frames, and at that point it's like not going through anymore. So it's like, I don't know what it's called. I think impact frames is the correct word to describe what that is. But yeah, so just pointing out that fast motion can be kind of like blurred out by having the camera move when that happens, or like other motions too, just like along with other motions. You know, stuff gets confused. What's important is like the in-betweens, and like this is the larger movement overall. You know, the anticipation, the press, stuff like that. Well, I've also had to keyframe the ambient occlusion because that starts to mess with the hand when it gets too close. Oh, and then I've also got the emission to like increase when the hand presses the button down, just because it looks kind of nice. Like when it squishes it, it looks like it's actually squishing something, you know, when the emission goes up. I don't know, I thought that was kind of neat. So yeah, that's that with that scene. All right, so I think this scene is actually a pretty good example of how the physics bones actually impact the end animation. So this is the baked finished animation where you can see the jiggle on like that little head thing as it like impacts. But if I'm opening up the original here that's not baked, and I want to see, can I just turn off wiggle on this entirely? There we go. You can see that like it's still like the principles of animation are still all there. You know, the anticipation, you move it back. Oh, actually, this is a thing I did not plan on covering, but it's important. Wait, can I see? Oh no, actually, never mind. Don't worry about it. I thought something was happening, but that wasn't actually happening. Oh, this. Wait, are the hands parented to that, or no? Yeah, I think that the hands are inverse kinematics, and then they're parented to this, and then this is the thing that's moving. And then do they switch over to, how does that work? Did I just eyeball it, just make that work? I think I did. Well, so I could have done something else, like I could have constrained that to parent to that when that's done, and I could have make it like actually stick better, but I don't think it really matters. Oh, I also love how the gears actually, God, that's so satisfying. Anyway, you can only see it from the top down. Oh, and then if you're looking at like the original animation, you can see that the lighting is consistent across these two things. Like there's an orange light here, blue light here. Oh, not blue light, but like blue character, and then blue light here. I don't know, it was just something to point out, like the lighting matches, the composition matches. And also this does follow like the rule of thirds. Like there's a crossover point here, here, and here. I don't know, it just kind of works to have 2 focus points on each side, just to have everything line up like that. Oh yeah, and let me point out the other scene that this is playing at the same time. Is it circuits? Yep, okay. So let me remember, are these hands parented or constrained to... No, okay, so the cables are... Can you see that? No, they're not. What are those things parented to? Okay, no, the hand bones, okay. The hands, I'm 90% sure, are parented to these cables, and I originally just animated the cables first. Had the robot, yeah, oh yeah, you can see it. Because you can see the cables are moving, and then the robot is inverse kinematics, and then that's connected to the cables moving. So they have, you know, their little anticipation thing, and then they have just, you know, little impact where they move everything apart. Oh, actually, this is where I wanted to point on the other scene where it wasn't actually happening, but the camera moves, like has an impact when the thing in the animation does. It's, okay, well, Blender just crashed, but I'm going to keep talking as I reopen it. But That's something that can add a lot of impact to the animations you're doing. Is if you have the camera move at the same time, a little movement happens. Because it adds a lot of impact just to like that movement kind of happening. Also, when it you don't have to animate. Sorry, you don't have to animate things that are off screen. Oh, I just rotated those plates straight up. Okay. Well, he looks a little lobotomized right now because, um, I just didn't have to animate him. Oh my god, it looks so stupid. Um, so don't worry about that. These guys are also here just because I duplicated the scene and I was lazy and I just wanted to get it done as fast as possible. Oh, actually, something I didn't point out in the original robot model is the way that this is done is, oh my gosh, it's using a gradient texture, and then I've like, okay, so I've got these things, right? And then, can I open up a UV editor down here? So I UV map projected them, but then I just scaled them individually by 0 so that when a gradient texture like passes over them, can I adjust this color ramp here? Wait, oh wait, yeah, that was it. It like turns off 100%. So like this is a representation of what's happening in the UV window. As you can see, like they get turned off of that. And then I think I've got a math node that just adds, yeah, that's what's happening. So that's how that little thing works, is it just increases. You can see that keyframe there. It's not on constants, it's actually linear, and it just works because it's scaled by 0 on the UV, and that's what that's mapped to. God, can you not, like, I really want you to not look like that. Thank you. You look a little more normal now. Thank you for being human. Okay, well that's those two scenes. Okay, so this is the last scene that I think I'll talk about. So coming in from the last scene, the robot is like traveling really fast. It just squash and stretch. It's just kind of funny to look at. Like you can see, because it's going so fast, it just is all stretched out. And this is like artificial motion blur. Like, I'm not a big fan of motion blur, honestly. Like, I think that, I mean, if you've ever looked at Into the Spider-Verse or, like those classic like Overwatch animations or whatever, like you can see how animators like will stretch out literally stretch out the character instead of just leaving it to motion blur, because it's better to control it that way than just like letting motion blur like stretch everything else out. And you can, I don't know, it looks so much better when you actually like stretch it out yourself, I think, for the most part. Like, and because I've got this just parented to like an empty, I can kind of just do that. Like I could just make it insane, something like that, where it's like, oh, there's frame 1, and it's just it's just like that. But I don't have it as that. Yeah, I kind of don't like how this happens here. I think there should have been more impact. I also don't know why it like rotates a little bit, like it tilts. I don't really know. Whatever. Okay, so that's that. Oh, also, it's kind of funny. I had to keep the cube consistent coming from the last scene because it was too jarring if it didn't. Like, I gotta have to pull it up. So there's that. Cube's there, and then it's like kept consistent, because if it wasn't there, like I noticed it like looked strange. So even though this is like a completely different scene, if you actually like look at all, whatever, I had to keep it like that. Yeah, so, oh, this is also another funny thing, is I got this wall from BlenderKit, which is just like photo scanned, and then it's just like a plain, like, if you've ever watched Ian Hubert's tutorials on like modeling buildings, like this is what he does, is he just like takes a picture of a building and then just like extrudes it inwards. Like it's just a practice for like taking a photo of something and then modeling it off based off of that, or based off of using it as a texture. Because it gets you really high quality stuff with such little effort. Like, just look at the topology of this versus just like a photo texture. It just works so well. This is why I want to move to a city, honestly, so that I can just like take pictures of urban stuff and then just like straight up rip them as textures. I really want that, but as it is, I live in a place where it's kind of dangerous to do that for the most part. Just because of like I could get hit by a car or something, I don't really know. And then I just duplicated it, rotated it 90 degrees, and used it as the floor. So if there's a door on the ground, it doesn't matter though, because you can't see that, and nobody really cares. This is from this, I think. Okay, I should stop saying I think because that like questions my credibility. I know it is. I know. Nope. Okay, no, it's not. I'm sorry. See, now my credibility is ruined because I know it's from BlenderKit, and I could just search like what's it? Garage door. I don't know. Whatever. Somewhere in here. Yeah. But it's personal work, so it doesn't matter. Oh yeah, I don't know if I've actually covered this in the previous scenes, but these lights are just like the ones on the original robot model. They're just like a different color and scaled up, and they don't track to the camera. But they're nice because they can fill in some empty space like that and like that, where you're not necessarily looking, but it just like looks nice. It kind of redirects your eyes so it's more clear, I want to say. Like this stuff's out of focus, but it's not using depth of field, it's like using dots. If you know what I mean. I don't know if that's like a super confusing explanation. Um, oh yeah, last thing. I mean, also this was so much fun to do, was to just like get the robot to a point, and then I just got to start like ripping stuff out and like moving stuff around. I was just like, yeah, that's fun. Just get to do slow-mo of that. These bolts just kind of pop into existence though, like at that point, just because I needed more debris and I couldn't get them out of there fast enough. They were going slow, but you can't really notice it because it's hidden in the fast motion. And that's like I said previously with the button press. That's just something you can kind of do in fast motion. It's just hide stuff. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the end of that. And that's for the most part all the important stuff that I did with the animation. Again, like you can pause, look over the notes I wrote earlier, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah. See ya.